Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage. I'm doing a rear brake rebuild, refurb service on my Landrover Freelander 2. A few weeks ago, whilst out on a trip in Wales, I had a squeaking coming from the rear driver's side brake. Pulled over, and sure enough the wheel was hot. Now, that could have been a wheel bearing, could have been a brake. Fortunately, I know how to put the handbrake into the service position, which opens the calipers up and therefore can alleviate the contact between the pads and the disc, so you can get rid of the noise if it is that. Did that, went away. I'm also previously had the slide pins on the calipers stick on this car. When I first had it, I just took them out, emery clothed them, they were a bit gunky, put some new grease on, put them back together, but the pins are not perfect. So thinking that's where it is, but I've got new pins, new discs, new pads, so I can do a proper job. So if you've got a late Freelander 2 like me, it's got the electronic park brake. So the handbrake is applied by winding in the normally dead side of the same caliper used for braking using your foot brake. And in order to disassemble the brakes properly, you need that wound off, and you can't just loosen a cable. So how do you put this in a service position which winds the handbrake all the way off? It's very straightforward once you know. Don't put your foot on the brake, which is how you start these cars. So ignition on, push down on the handbrake button and keep it down. 1, 2. Now depress the throttle all the way. 1, 2. Now ignition. Now ignition. Park brake in maintenance mode. Quite lucky living where I do. I'm not very far from this place, famous for Land Rover parts across the world, and they offer online service with delivery, and you can choose generally for most things from original equipment, pattern part with brands, non-branded parts, so you choose how much you spend. As always, I've kind of gone middle of the road on most things. Top quality, but not OE, Brembo brakes for the pads. 2-year warranted, all makes 4x4 for the discs. New slide pins, TRW, so they're probably original equipment anyway, even though not branded Land Rover, TRW being a major supplier to OEM. Obviously I'm only having trouble on one side, but it's pointless doing anything other than a full axle job. I've already taken off the puzzle nut or locking wheel nut. I'm loosening these wheel nuts while the vehicle's still on the ground. And because I have the luxury of a home garage lift, we just get her up in the air. A lift is far from essential on this job, but obviously very nice to have. These are useful for whizzing things off quickly. Don't use one to tighten up the nuts on your wheels. Okay, I've got a bungee cord. I'm just going to hook up onto the coils of my spring. And that is just going to allow me to suspend my caliper when it's off. It's easiest to do that before you get the caliper off. And first tool I need is a 13mm. She's going to go on there. before anybody gets panicky and says, oh God, John, has your car been in a flood? Has it been under the sea? I live in the UK. This is what most of our cars above a certain age but aren't completely pampered looks like. It's just the nature of our climate and how we deal with our roads in winter. This is what cars look like. So, these are generally not too tight, the slide pin bolts. You may have to put another spanner on here. There's a flatted area, stop it from rotating. But they're both out. Here's a connector for the handbrake. Should have a clip that stops me pulling that off. So I'll look into that before I reassemble it. Something's gummed up. Should have to squeeze that here. And I don't, so that's not as grippy as it should be. With those two bolts out, should be able to remove the caliper. There we go. The flexi hose is in a notched bracket here with a grommet, so you can just slide that backwards to give yourself a little bit more space. Like so. And there we are. Caliper off. That's where our bungee cord comes in, just enabling us to hook that up out of the way, and then we can pull the pad out. Should be able to pull the pad out. It's worn down a lot in the 12 months I've had this car, which also suggests they've been dragging. Ooh, feather. Just have a quick look at the brand. Forgot. Borg & Beck. So these are good quality pads. Still got life left in them, technically, or at least that one had. Yeah, they're not moving around very easily in the sliders. So this little thing here is a removable stainless steel slide weight. Should mean these move around really easily. Look at that. That's worn like a wedge. That's because this has been sticking at the bottom and not moving as it should. Now I want to change the disc, so it's not completely destroyed, but it's got a bit of a lip here and here. Can't really feel the back. Again, just a little bit of a lip. It's not too bad, but I want to take I want to take the disc off and replace it. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the carrier off. And for that, we need a 15mm. There we go. There we go. That one doesn't want to move easily. So I'm going to get some leverage. So we got a breaker bar. In my opinion, so named, because it's either coming off or it's breaking it. I can just about get that angle. Yeah, it's moved it. Start the other one as well. Should now be able to switch back to my ratchet. It's amazing how much leverage that bar gives you, you forget it's still tight. And off comes our carrier, complete with slide pins. Next we want to get the disc off, and there's a single Torx, it's a T50, holds the disc in place once the wheel's off, and rig it so that it jams. Now, jam that against my ramp. See what we can do. Doesn't want to turn easily. Yay! Top tip, if you ever do the same as me and use heat, it's really easy to forget. In the jubilation of success, everything's hot. Hey, and we're off. And although you can see this is not heavily worn, it's just been making contact in one patch. That's to do with that jamming, cocking over So I'm happy that this has explained why this brake was locking up on me. And back plates are pretty crusty, but that'll do for now. On the back of the caliper is the motor that's for the handbrake, and they can give in. I don't think there's a problem on mine. As long as your electronic handbrake is in the service position, so there's nothing to resist this, you can wind back the caliper using a special tool like I've got, or just a lever, you know, a block of wood in there, rocking it backwards and forwards a bit slower. You don't need to rotate the end of the piston or anything like that, as long as it is in the service position. As the service position is basically winding a mechanical clamp in against the back of the piston, so that's going to be wound all the way off, else you're just going to keep butting up against it. I've opened up the top of my reservoir for brake fluid just so I can keep an eye on the level, and as I'm pushing this back I'm raising the level, and I don't want it overflowing. These back plates are completely shot, as you can see, but I don't have any replacements at the moment, so it'll be being reassembled, and I'll get hold of some of those as soon as I can. Basically an inside out G-clamp. I'll put a link in the description to a set similar to mine if you want to get a bespoke brake pushback kit. You can work without them. Okay, it's time to rebuild. I am particularly time poor today, so nothing's going to get the love I'd normally like to give to it, but as I know the back plates have got to be replaced, that's not a biggie, because we've got to go back in there at some stage anyway. Right, the brake pads come with new slides. They also come with new bolts for the sliders. So these replace these. And here the slide ways that your brake pads should hopefully go in and out on really easily. All you got to do is a tab at the top, you pull down and they'll fall out. And although they're stainless, eventually they get impressions in them, and yeah, there's no saving them basically. So let's take them out, a little brush out, gonna get a wire brush. Not having a good day for finding things today in this. Just clean up the area where that's gonna go. There you go. So much as this is rough and ready, it's still probably considerably more care and time spent than your average garage. So that just snaps back into position like so. And then you've got nice new stainless tracks. Okay, so nice new slideways in place. Next thing is these slide pins. And associated gaiters. That was the one that was sticky previously. It's highly oxidized. I think that's the one that caused the damage. Okay, so we've got a kit here. Consists of new pin, new rubber, and some brake grease for guide pins and guide pin bars. Don't know what a bar is. Bar. So before we fit this, all we're going to do is first of all just check. Same length, same fitting, all good. And we've got a bit of rag and a fine screwdriver. We're just going to run this through the slide pin hole, or bush. It is a blind hole, and just fetch out some of the old grease. And basically making a lot cleaner, nicer job of it. But as much as anything else, this video should prove I can actually move quickly when I need to. I get quite a few comments saying, God, you make a meal of stuff, John. A, I'm talking to myself and making videos. B, most of the videos you see of me doing work are because I'm enjoying it. You know, this is a hobby for me. I have a proper job. So why would I rush if I'm enjoying the task? I could and would enjoy doing it on this vehicle as well. It's not like I don't like the Freelander. It just so happens I have other things to do and I need the vehicle back on the road ASAP. Okay, so I've got a little sachet of brake grease. I do have a tub of the stuff. That's mine. Futu Caliper guide pin grease. I like that. It's not expensive, about £9 I think for that tub, and this tends to come in really small sachets, but I'll be using this first for obvious reasons. Here's our new guide pin, and I'm going to start off by just putting loads of grease around the top of the pin and sliding it into the bush just to draw it down to the bottom. You'll get a springy effect, sort of a hydraulicing action. That's good news. That means it's a nice fit and you're lubing it up fully and correctly. The reason that the guide pin grease is anything other than just grease, it's just suitable for the rubber. It doesn't corrode the rubber boot. And is high temperature, so it tends to be silicone based. What I'm going to do now, these are the same both ends, there's not a top and a bottom. I like to fill up these with grease, and that way it's kind of a reservoir that it's constantly topping up from. as well as being a seal against moisture and dirt getting in, because it's got to get past all this. So if I slide that onto the pin, like so, and then there's a bit of a shoulder that you can pop that onto, like so. Scrape some more back down into the boot. I've used that sachet. They give you one sachet for each pair of pins you've got. So the amount I use is not really enough. But it's so much better to have it than not. And we just slide our pin on and hook the other end of the boot onto another little shoulder on the carrier. Wipe off the excess, not because it's going to do any harm, but just because it's sticky and it will collect dirt. There you go. And again, you don't need to be doing me, you don't need to see me doing the second one. There we go. All renewed in the important places. I'd like to have cleaned it up, but it won't make a difference to how the thing performs. Make sure that these faces are clean and you haven't got any muck on your little slideways. So the next item is the disc. The only mistake you can really make with these is assuming that they're clean because they're in a nice sealed bag, or contaminating the surface yourself. So get hold of some brake cleaner, or I've got some alcohol spray, isopropyl alcohol, either will do, and clean down the friction surfaces, because mine are sealed in bags and are probably fine, but the majority are sort of wrapped up and covered in a protective grease, and it's not apparent initially. It's thin stuff, you can't really see it on a lot of them, but always assume that they're covered in oil. Don't use WD-40 or anything else. Make it proper brake cleaner or just pure alcohol. The surface doesn't really matter, but by cleaning it off, I know I'm not going to pick up more grease on my gloves and potentially transfer it. Oh, flip over. There we go. Pretty clean. At this stage, I'm going to put a little bit of copper grease on this surface, because this can easily freeze, lock, jam, seize up against the hub and give you the hell of a game to get the things back off. Do not get copper slip, copper grease, whatever you want to call it, release grease, anywhere near the braking surface. A, it'll stop your braking. B, you know, the devil's own game to get it all back off. Been playing around with some spray versions of copper grease, and I've got to say, I don't think they contain an awful lot of copper. So I'm back to tub grease. Now, I've cleaned this hub up, but just before you put it back on, make sure that the mating surface that the disc is going to touch gets another little wipe, because if you trap anything here, it'll give the impression of a warped disc. There we go. And that's the surface that I've greased on the other side of my disc, so that it shouldn't seize on. There's a threaded hole in the hub. Make sure your extra hole in your disc lines up with that. There we go. And then we refit our T50 Torx. As you can imagine, the disc is going nowhere because it's held on by the wheel. So don't worry about getting this mega tight or a critical torque setting. It only exists so that everything's nice and flush and lined up while you're putting the brakes back together. Now that the disc's in place, we can attach our carrier with its new guide pins and slideways. Just bring in some more light. Tighten them up evenly, top and bottom. Don't do one all the way up and then follow with the other. There we go. I'm back at our bench. On the Freelander 2, the brake pads aren't handed, so I've got 4 pads, so any 2 will do for this side. And what we're doing is we're going to grease this lug, and it really wants this surface, and this surface to be greased. They're the surfaces that actually slide against that stainless steel piece, and they're going to go backwards and forwards in that groove. You don't want to get it near the friction material for obvious reasons. Very sticky stuff, it more or less stay where you put it. And then take a little bit of grease and put it across your pad, like so. This is the back, it's the metal side, and the reason for this is it helps to reduce squealing, because the caliper is not making metal to metal contact, or at least steel to steel contact with the back of the pad. It's got to go through the copper, which is relatively soft, and that tends to prevent squealing. Doesn't sound likely, but this is standard. And this is not about me being extra careful. If you take your car into almost any garage for brakes, I'd be surprised if they didn't use a little of this, because it's quite expensive. So I'm just wiping the areas where the pads are going to touch, in case any rubbish has fell on them whilst I've been doing other things. I'm going to take our first pad, and the back is harder because you can't see what you're doing so much. So we'll do that one first. You're taking that lug and you're popping it into the groove in the stainless steel shim. And you're trying to do the same at the top. And I'm going to get coppery, but there we go. And that's in. Just push that all the way up to the disc, because that'll make the next step easy. This side's a lot easier to see, but if you understand on this side, then it's exactly the same on the other side. So again, you see our little lug. It's going to go into these grooves, like so. Good. There we go. Fully honed. And now we've got to slide our caliper on to this, which is why you want your pads all the way in and you want your piston fully retracted, which is what we did with the special clamping tool in my example. But equally, you put a piece of wood in there and just wiggle it backwards and forwards. Screwdriver in the right sort of place. So it's not essential to have the right tool for that job, but it does make things a lot easier. You can see our slide pins here, and because they're full of grease and nice and smooth and springy, they might pop out and get in your way. Just be aware of them. That hole is going onto there. Caliper's going around the brake pads. I'm going to take my bungee cord, which has been taking the weight off. Yep, that pin was just sticking out and stopping it going on. And we're approximately in place. And with the guide pins what I bought, I got new bolts. We've already got some thread lock on. So we'll be using those. If you can get them to start. Just a case of lining things up. There we go. When it comes to tightening them, you may need to put another spanner on the flats here and here just to stop the things from turning. But the only way to find out is to give it a go. .13mm spanner. Because everything's new, it may spin a little bit, but I think it'll probably tighten up without another spanner. Just put my finger on it. Not quite. And that's a 15mm. Then take our flexi hose And remember, on the Freelander it goes up before it goes down. Push the grommets back into their bracket so nothing's straining. Check that your electrical connector is well attached. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a rebuilt brake. As I say, I haven't done a pretty job, done a quick job, well, and I have got to go back in there in the near future when I can get hold of some new back plates, because they're well and truly crusty and won't survive too much longer. Whew, pretty good. So obviously you put wheels back on, and then when you come to get in the car, remember that the brake is in the service position. To turn service mode off, it's kind of the reverse. So all we're going to do if it's different, is pull up on the switch, i.e. handbrake on, and do the same things. So ignition on. Don't touch your brake while you're doing that, else it'll start. Then when you're ready, it's pull up on the handbrake, 1, 2, full throttle, 1, 2, turn off, 1, 2, turn on. And now the handbrake has wound itself back in and you're ready to drive. I'll put some links in the description below to some of the parts, some of the places, etc. But for a lot of it, you can just go to the Garage Amazon shop front. It's not stuff that I'm selling. It's just an area of Amazon that enables me to share all the things I've purchased on Amazon over the years. So head on over there, follow the link, and you can find some of the things that I've used. And that's me done. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you like videos like that, please subscribe to the channel. Costs you nothing, helps me out. And I'll see you all again soon. And while we're here, August has gone. So, bye-bye to Steve Ferro. And hello to Terry Lisa. 2000 XKR with only 18,000 miles on the clock, pictured in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, USA. Lovely picture. And if you haven't already seen it, we've announced the winners to the 2024 photo competition that will appear in the 2025 photo competition as the main feature cars. But everybody who entered, regardless of how many votes they got, will end up on a thumbnail. If you just go to Amazon/shop/to-the-garage, and I'll put that link in the description below so that you can just click on it. It takes you to a to-the-garage area of Amazon that is categorized into hand tools, power tools, gadgets and gizmos, things specifically the XK8, etc. that I've bought from Amazon over the years, so that you can follow the same links and have a look, see how much those cost at the moment. Nice little feature. Thank you, Amazon. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.